All right. Good morning, Austin. Thanks for coming on the pod. How are you?
Doing well. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. I love the Omni logo in the background. Always a nice
Hmm.
touch.
Yeah.
I need a little something over here. Everybody, thanks for watching. Welcome to episode 7, season 2 of Behind the Builder. We've got Austin here from Omni Labs. So excited to chat. And Omni, Austin, I'd like to turn it over to you first. A little background about yourself and just short little blurb on Omni, and then we can get into the questions.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Happy to kick it off. Blurb on myself. Who am I? Well, I'm Austin. I guess my background. I had another crypto company before Omni. Started that right after I graduated from university. Built it for 2 years, sold it to Ripple, worked at Ripple for a year to vest, and then quit to build this company. So my whole career has been in crypto so far, and I studied computer science in college. So it's always been more in the technical research domain of crypto. But yeah, that's kind of like an overview of my professional background. Omni at large, it's a chain abstraction protocol for the Ethereum ecosystem. So we used to have just Ethereum L1 where everything lived together and it was really simple compared to what we have today. Now we have Optimism, Arbitrum, Base, all these different scaling solutions on top of Ethereum. And it's made it really difficult to use the ecosystem at large. And so Omni effectively abstracts away the complexity of these different platforms and just makes it look like one chain again. That's kind of the TLDR on the value that Omni provides.
Awesome. Um, Before we can get to the questions, I have a pre-question. Um, I always like to ask people about like first career moves. Obviously, your story is that you were a founder, and that's just the way your life went. Not that you can go back in time, but how how would you recommend, or when younger people ask you about like getting out of college and what to do first, do you tell them to just try and like fail fast, or do you recommend that they go work somewhere else?
Yeah. Honestly, at this point, I've thought about this a decent amount, like whether this was the right path or not. A lot of my friends from university that also studied computer science and were interested in building startups took the opposite path where they didn't go and start a company right after school. Um, I did, and the downside of that was that I really didn't have a mentor as much. Whereas a lot of my friends had mentors, they would join these companies and they had people who were responsible for helping them grow. If you go to become a founder out the gate, you really have to be proactive with finding mentors. And so my growth rate was slower in some dimensions than the growth rate that some of my friends were experiencing. But at the same time, I think the massive benefit of just hopping straight into it out of university is that you're kind of ignorant and you don't know how much it's going to suck. And you're just kind of oh, I'm going to build a startup. This will be fun. But frankly, it's quite terrible at points. I love what I do, but it is grueling. There are points where you feel like you don't know what you're doing, you were wrong about something, you don't know where to drive things, you have to orient a team. So there are a lot of challenges with it, but that's kind of balance. It's you trade off a little bit of mentoring support, but you also just hop straight into it, because if you don't do that, the risk is you just get comfortable at another gig and you never really end up leaving to pursue building a company.
Yeah, absolutely. The mentor thing's a funny subject too, because I often asked myself and other people, like, how did you get a mentor? I feel like everybody's always like, my mentor this, my mentor that. I'm like,
Mhm.
where did you find this person? I get that probably just work and life. But this is so funny. And I'll just say it. I met somebody at a conference and he was like a professor at Wharton, and we had a nice conversation and I followed up and I was like, honestly, I don't know how people are getting mentors, but like, can I ask you outright if you would be my mentor? And he said
Mhm.
no. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Really vulnerable story, but I'd like to share that.
That's super funny.
So I'm sure you have some great mentors at this point then.
I do it honestly, and that's played a huge part in any success that I've seen. Really big mentors, mentors have played a huge role in my career so far, and I'm very grateful for them.
I'm hiring for a mentor, so
Yeah.
I'll be on the lookout. All right, so kind of like break the ice. What are your hobbies? What do you like to do outside of Omni?
Yeah. Honestly, I'm very, very lame in my personal life. I used to have hobbies before I started this company. I actually used to surf like every day. But I don't do that anymore. I used to live in Hawaii for like 6 months when I was starting this company at the very beginning. I had like quit Ripple and I basically gave myself 6 months. I knew I was going to build another company in crypto, but I didn't know exactly what it was going to be. And so I was like, all right, I have a 6 month window here to figure it out. And I just moved to Hawaii during this time. And I would just like surf every day and research like the latest in crypto and trade meme coins and stuff in the process of that. And so at that point I had a much more interesting personal life where I had like real hobbies and stuff. But at this point, this is a super boring response, but I honestly during the week I just work, and all I do is work out and then read for 30 minutes a night so I can fall asleep. And then on the weekend I see friends. um, so very rarely I'll go surfing because it's harder now that I live in New York. But past that, really honestly, it's just like spending time with people that I like care about and are like good friends of mine or family members.
That's a hobby. You got to mix it in, and reading too. If you read every night, that's great.
Yeah, yeah. It helps me kind of like turn my brain off and fall asleep.
Yeah, that's definitely a good night routine. And kind of on that, what is your I mean, I understand that you work every day based off of a tweet that I'm going to pull up in a bit. I know that you do work throughout the week. What's your daily routine look like when you wake up?
At this point, I am far more structured about my life than I was in my previous company. Kind of a standard day for me is wake up at 6:30. This is going to sound like a little ridiculous, but like immediately do 100 push-ups and sit-ups. And this like uh it helps my brain understand like, all right, it's 6:30, time to do push-ups. Like wake up as opposed to like laying in bed and being like, like, like it kind of it sucks the first few weeks that you do it, but then after that, your brain understands like time to go, time to like get cooking on things. And then after that, I shower, meditate, eat, bike to work until like 1:30 usually, go work out, and then come back to the office, and then usually leave the office around like 9:30, and then I shower and read for 30 minutes so that my brain can like relax and stop thinking about work, and then I do it again. That's that's what I do each day of the week.
That's cool. I kind of figured that you had a nice routine based on I'll just talk about the tweet instead of keep referring to it. The one about you founding your first company and then having like 80 hours of work that you really didn't know what you were
Mm,
getting done, and then kind
mhm.
of making sure that you were setting up your week. So I figured you've had something more scheduled. The push-ups thing is really interesting. And then like how did you kind of come to that conclusion? One day you were just like, I'm going to start my day with this.
I forget where. Maybe somebody told me about this, and I was like, "That's kind of sick. I respect that." And I've heard of this as well. Like I feel like there's some famous college speech where there's some army guy who's like, "Make your bed every morning because if you make your bed every morning, you start the day succeeding." In some I don't know, something like that. It's kind of
No,
that
that's
same
totally it.
psychological. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and it just worked for me. And also, honestly, I think it like even though I work out for like 45 to 60 minutes each day, I think that just having the consistent repetition of like 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups every morning has like a noticeable impact on my body. And I have to like I used to not have to be as intentional about my health. Like when I lived in Hawaii, I just surfed. I didn't even like lift or do cardio explicitly, but because I was surfing all the time, I like was in really good shape. But here I have to be like quite intentional about it. And I think actually that morning routine like plays a decent role in just like my fitness. Yeah.
Love it. That's very cool. Yeah, it totally is Make Your Bed. My dad bought me that book.
Yeah.
It's to start your day with success for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, and now we can kind of talk about these tweets that I've referred to a few times. So I want to share my screen. Uh, let's see here. Let's go to this one. Can you see that? Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got this one we kind of talked about where you have your weekly goals,
Mhm.
decide on one thing, work out, meditate. I mean, meditate and gratitude. I like the emphasis on working out and the emphasis on getting those weekly goals done. I actually started doing that since I read this tweet, and I was really excited when I saw you do another podcast, because I was like, oh, I'm going to try and get Austin on the podcast because I want to talk about this specifically. And then also, I just thought this was greatly written. And then this one as well, something like Praxis that is really hard and maybe like not a difficult thing to understand, but definitely a hot topic of conversation. People could debate it. You wrote this in a really digestible way, and you came to like clear conclusions about, even if you think it's a good idea or not, this is what's valuable about it. So on that subject, I wanted to ask, when you write something like this, do you have a framework? How do you come up with a clear message? And if you could like boil it down, how does something like this come about? Or are you just a free writer and this happens when you put finger to iPhone?
Yeah. One thing that I think is worth noting on this is I honestly I had been in crypto and on Twitter since like 2017, 2018. But I really didn't start tweeting until a few months ago. And I think the most important thing for anybody that wants to tweet more and like get more followers is just tweet. Like literally just like click send tweet, and you will see what like resonates with people more. What I've found resonates with people the most is writing that is like longer form and hopefully saying something of value. There's a lot of like funny accounts. I think I'm like not as funny as a lot of people. And so the only way that I can get engagement on Twitter is like trying to like really think about something and like put something of value out there. What my writing has like turned into is honestly, I do a lot of my writing on Sundays, and I just kind of, my brain works well with like deep work time. And I think this just from like my engineering background. I like to zone in heavily and like turn off all distractions. And then I just schedule tweets to go out throughout the week. But often I'll find that I have something I want to communicate, and then I'll start writing it out. And then I'll notice like, hey, there's actually like 3 ideas here. And I'll just kind of like I'll kind of write a V1, and then I'll take out one of those ideas and write like a more concise version of it. Because like long form posts work well if people find them valuable, but they can't be like too long. It can't be like this whole essay and stuff. And so generally I'll write that out on Sundays and kind of like piece it out into different tweets that they can be. And then the morning that I am about to post it, I'll take like one final lap. Like, can I make this any more succinct? I think that's like a really important thing. If you're writing longer form, just like cut out any fluff. Don't use big words. Just like be direct and like communicate with precision. And then just tweet it out that way. That's kind of been my habit. But there's other people on my team that have completely different like strategies for Twitter. Graham on my team, for example, literally just anything that goes through his brain, if he finds it mildly amusing, he'll just like ship it right there in the moment. So it's not like this is the way. This is just what I found works best for me.
Yeah, and that's my next question too. You've got this whole team. I don't know if it's just my feed, but like the whole Omni team is just popping up all over my crypto Twitter. Like it's you, it's Graham, it's Matt. Like those are the 3 main people. And I wanted to ask if there was an internal requirement or expectation. How do you build a team of content creators but make it genuine if it's a requirement? Because sometimes that can like hurt that type of expectation or requirement. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, I've heard this from other teams as well, that like some founders are like, get more on the timeline.
Yeah.
And I think that's difficult. This was not, speaking super transparently, this was not an intentional thing. These are powerful resources, and it's tying more into our marketing strategy at large now. Just like, oh, okay, we have like wider followings on our personal accounts. We can use that to amplify to different audiences, because people follow Graham because he's funny. People follow me for a totally different reason. So it's actually, if we have a main announcement, we can amplify to this audience, but also this audience. So it's actually like powerful resources now that we've kind of like ended up in this situation. But it was not like, okay, if you're joining the team, you need to tweet this many times a week and get this much engagement. Honestly, it was just pretty natural. The person who probably needed the most nudging was me, honestly. My team's like, you're the co-founder of this thing. You need to tweet more. But Graham and Matt are just like experimenting with that type of thing. And at this point, there's been more playful challenges. Like Graham and I right now, like, all right, we're competing. There's a prediction market on whether he'll hit 10K followers or I'll hit 10K followers
Is
first.
there
So
really?
yeah, it's like
That's
on this protocol called Bracket, but um, it wasn't like we didn't set KPIs around and stuff. We've run small little experiments and like games around it, but it honestly just came from just, I don't know, naturally having a team where people want to experiment with this stuff. And then I think that forcing it can be problematic. It can probably make people uncomfortable. For example, Graham is like, LinkedIn is underutilized. Austin, you need to post more, and Matt, you need to post more. And I'm like, oh, dude, I posted one time and all my hometown friends texted me talking shit. Like, he's like, it doesn't matter, dude. That's your job. And then Matt was like, dude, I'm not going to do that. Like, same thing's going to happen to me. People are going to be like, who do you think you are? And I'm kind of like, yeah, fair, dude. I get that. Like, it's cringe. It's pretty
Yeah,
cringe
it
to post
is.
on LinkedIn. Yeah.
If anybody's posting on LinkedIn, it's definitely me. And it is embarrassing. I went to Trader Joe's 2 weeks ago and somebody goes, "You're a crypto recruiter." And I was like, "Yes." And they were like, "What's that?" And I was like, "I didn't want you to know about this. This isn't for you."
Yeah.
But naturally, that's just the way it goes. It's tough. The LinkedIn's tough, but that's cool. Friendly competition's always good. And I get that if you get the right people on your team, like I think for you, it kind of just worked out that the two people, well, obviously Graham is your BD guy, right? So he's kind of leading.
I mean, what's worked well is like, honestly, our team is like by far primarily engineering. Yeah, it's only Graham, Matt, and one other person, Chase, that are full-time not engineers on our team.
Okay.
And I don't know, sometimes I see like BD teams with like 10 people on there. And I'm like,
Who
what
are
are you doing? Like, but yeah, we're actually very small on the like non-engineering side of things. We're actually pretty small as an organization at large, but it's like heavily weighted towards engineering at Omni.
Cool. How many people total?
It's like roughly 15 right now.
Oh, great. Lean team.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And I don't know, I believe like strongly in that. Like, I've seen a lot of people overhire and it just like waste money, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And I do appreciate, I don't know, like trend might be a cringe word for that, but like lean team is definitely becoming a more of a conversation that I'm seeing. And I appreciate it. I think it's a good conversation to have because the last thing you need to be doing is hiring people that you just are superfluous or trying to just like build out like whatever.
Yeah.
Lots of opinions on that. Actually, and maybe that's a good segue. Let me ask this. I'm going to share my screen again. So I went to a Salon of Boston conference, and there was a lot of younger students from like MIT, Harvard. I thought of this because I saw on your website that the founding team is from Harvard. So kind of like the question of entry level roles, whose job is it? What's your opinion on this? Masari kind of used to have this. How do we get younger kids right out of college to join? Like, where does this fit in?
Yeah. It's hard to build a company right out of school because you have no idea what you're doing. And I don't say that about other people. I say that about like myself. I literally had no clue what I was doing. I studied computer science. I didn't study software engineering. That wasn't an option at Harvard. And so I thought I knew how to build software, but when I graduated and actually had to start building like serious software systems, I realized like, oh, I was just doing homework. I don't know how to like software engineer. And not knowing how to like build serious software systems on top of really having no idea what I was doing as like a business person, like it luckily like things worked out with my first company, but like frankly, most of that company was like I was really trying to figure things out. So I mean, it's hard like betting on founders that like just graduate just because of how junior people are and like they lack business expertise and like engineering expertise. Matt on our team, he was actually an intern of ours while he was still in university, and yeah, he worked at JP Morgan previously, and we just like poached him. We're like, look, if you come here, like like there's literally only a couple of us on the non-engineering side. You will have like extremely high leverage here. So that I don't, yeah, we don't have anybody who's nearly, Matt is fantastic, let me be clear, but we don't have anybody that like is that junior on the
Yeah.
engineering side. Because it's, yeah, engineering standards in crypto are like extremely high just because they're very adversarial systems. Um,
Absolutely.
but yeah, I don't know. It's tough because it's hard to hire people that just don't have a ton of experience. It's also hard to invest in people who don't have a ton of
Yeah.
experience. But at large, I think the most important thing is finding people who are just like hungry. That's honestly one of the most important things I look for when hiring people. And the main thing to have that balanced out with is just low ego. Like
Yeah.
if people have, there's like that text that looked like it was talking about MIT.
Yeah.
Frankly, bearish MIT, Harvard, Stanford, because the kids have big egos. Like
Yeah.
that just like so many people that I talk to, like I try to help people who are like juniors or seniors at Harvard. And a lot of them just are very overconfident.
Yeah.
There's just like, I don't know, maybe this is just a Harvard thing. Maybe I'm like generalizing,
I-
but like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like if people have big egos coming out of school, it's just like their growth rate is going to be lower because they feel like they get the game. It's just like,
yeah.
frankly, you do not. Yeah.
That's funny. I mean, I know my fair share of people from Harvard. Like 10, I think 10 kids from my high school went to Harvard,
Mhm.
just because it's so close by. But yeah, I think egos. Maybe it's a Gen Z thing too. Like
Mm.
people are confident right now, and they shouldn't be. Maybe it's a little generational, but yeah, it's an
Yeah, maybe.
interesting thing. And a little bit to that, like, what are your best hiring practices when you're looking for this new marketing person?
Mhm.
What's your process look like?
Yeah, probably the easiest and highest leverage thing that has impacted our success on hiring is clarity on what we are hiring for. I think this is probably one of the number one reasons that people overhire, but they don't know exactly what they need. So
Yeah.
before we hire, or like before we even post a position publicly, internally we draft a document called an MOC. So it's like mission, outcome, competencies. And so mission's like one sentence. What is this person's mission? Why are we bringing them on board? Like, why do we need this role? Outcomes is like, okay, once this person is on board, what are discrete outcomes that they are going to achieve and like build for the company? Competencies, like, what are the skill sets? What do they need to be really good at? And so this forces you to be very precise with like, this is why we are hiring this role. And so I think it helps prevent overhiring. It also reduces bias in interview processes so that everybody can know exactly like these are the competencies we are looking for in this candidate. And you can just have like very formalized, like, do they hit this box, this box, this box, rather than like, I don't like, honestly, their vibes like really good. Like, I think they have like really high energy. Like, it just avoids conversations like that. Honestly, if there's one thing that has had the biggest impact on our ability to hire great people, it is that because it gives internal clarity on what we need.
Love it. That's a great thing. So I like the MOC process. That's very good. How did you hire Graham? What's the story of hiring him?
Graham, we honestly, Graham was a referral
Oh,
effectively. Yeah, just from being in the industry for a while, I have like closer friends, and he was leaving Say at this point in time and exploring different opportunities. And he talked with a friend of mine who like knew Graham was good, but he didn't have the need for like that role internally. We did, and so he was like,
that's
"Hey,
cool.
you should chat with Graham." And Graham and I like, it was at the end of last year. We were like chatting with each other, like, is this the right thing? We both like came to the conclusion, like, all right, this is like good. We like complement each other in a very good way, um, and this is needed at Omni. And so, yeah, honestly, very fortunate. But that came from uh, just like our own network, and a number of our hires at this point have come from uh, people, either referrals directly from our own team or just like people that we have relationships with that referred somebody else. And that is always a you are going to have a better success rate when it's like some personal referral like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, because then people know the cultural fit beyond like when we do talk to clients, at first we try and emphasize that cultural fit, whether or not it is the number one reason for turnover.
Mhm,
And a referral will just know that immediately
mhm,
before you even have an initial conversation.
for sure.
Um, yeah, that's cool. I just feel like the reason I asked was because the connection with Graham and Omni and on my crypto Twitter feed is just like it seems so genuine and natural and it fits all really well. And I like noticed it out of
Mhm,
everything and like all the junk that's on there all day long. So
mhm,
it's just it seems very genuine.
mhm. It is because
Um
it's straight from the dome from him. Like
yeah,
literally 6 seconds before he tweets it is the first time it went through his brain, and he just
it's so
whips
good.
it out there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. I think I saw yesterday I saw a tweet about DeSci or something.
Mhm.
Um and it was like all the best DeSci, and then the next tweet was from him, and it said, "WTF is DeSci?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, "That's my question. You said it first, Graham."
Yeah.
Um, so how do you stay focused, Austin? You've got a great routine, very disciplined. What's your key to staying focused?
On a day-to-day basis, like in my kind of like daily habits, are you asking?
Yeah, I guess even in the broad, actually, I let's go more broad because I
Mhm.
feel like it's easy when you're going through week by week and you're trying to get stuff done and goals achieved, to figure out like the mission you're moving towards. How do you stay focused on that one mission and remind yourself that like the push-ups are for this thing and kind of that it all weaves together into the day by day that will make up a month and a year that will just eventually go by, if that makes sense?
Um, yeah, on the personal wellness side, it's about just, I mean, for me, what keeps me like consistent and motivated with like physical and mental wellness is um, understanding that I'm not like this is going to sound very negative. I don't mean it that way. I'm not like the most kind and forgiving to myself in a like
Mm,
personal lifestyle sense. Like I just have like I force myself into a lifestyle that's like very demanding and
yeah.
can be taxing on like wellness in general. And so uh, the other side to that though is I really genuinely love what I do, and I want to like continue doing what I do for decades. I just like have a lot of energy, and I strongly believe that I am a very junior, naive version of what I can be in like 20 years from now. And so having that like cool, I will be able to do things that are at like far greater scale in 20 years as long as I don't explode in the meantime. That like so kind of being having that future
Huh.
version of myself that I want to become, and just knowing like cool, we can become that, but it will take like a significant it'll take many many years, and we need to like take care of ourselves like in the process of that. So like that helps me stay like mentally and physically well, and just like cool, do the push-ups. Like you're not going to feel good and motivated for work if you look in the mirror and you're like, I look like shit.
Yeah.
I'm not healthy right now. So like do
Yeah.
the push-ups.
Yeah.
So from like a physical perspective, that's just kind of like cool. I know I need to take care of myself. And this is like related to meditation and stuff as well. Just like
Yeah.
keep my sanity, check in with my family and stuff. Like it's okay to work as much as I do, but like call your parents once a week. Like
Yeah.
call your parents. Like they need you, and like you also like need family. And so that's kind of the personal life side. Keeping focus on the work side. Honestly, it's crypto, so there's so much just like fugazi, wazi woos. Like there's just so much nonsense all the time.
Yeah.
And I think in a weird enough way, like thinking about things in a mid curve way long term, just like, okay, cool. Over the next 2 years, everybody keeps talking about like onboarding the next billion users. Like, is that going to happen through MetaMask? Like, no, like obviously not. Like we're not going to like have people think about seed phrases and RPCs and wrapped assets and different smart contract platforms and like we've tapped
It's
out
not
the amount of people that like can think about that. So like
100%.
that's not a controversial like thing to believe. And so just acknowledging that reality, like okay, there's work that we need to do to like massively simplify the way that people engage on chain. And this is just like, it's simple, it's clear, everybody can like understand that, and just like staying fixed on like solving problems within like a very clear problem space like that, as opposed to like DeSci. And I'm not like shitting on DeSci. Honestly, I don't know
No,
much about DeSci.
no,
I don't have
I
an
don't
opinion on it right now, but like just not grabbing onto the shiny object that pops up
yes.
every other week on crypto Twitter, where it's like, oh, people are hype about AI agents now, or like now it's DeSci, and now it's like yada yada. Like just like seeing clear problems for what they are, and understanding that it takes a lot of work to solve them, and just staying focused on those for like very long periods of time. And that's how you build like valuable businesses in the long term.
Yeah, love that. Love that. Yeah, stay away from shiny objects. Definitely
Yeah.
true. What are you most excited for in crypto right now? Speaking of shiny objects.
Yeah, it's the shiniest object right now. Honestly, this is maybe not a super exciting response, but it's deeply exciting to me. But the meme of it is like chain abstraction, but it's kind of what I'm talking about with like make it easier for people to access the on-chain economy. Don't make them think about gas tokens and all this stuff. Like I think in 2025, I see all of the technical primitives out there, and in my head, this is the intent and solver design paradigm. This is interoperability. Alternative data availability solutions, and account abstraction. If you combine all those together, those are the ingredients that you need for the like chain abstraction formula. And so it's not like we need to invent new ZK in order to make it easy to do things on chain. All the like Lego pieces are there. There's just engineering work that needs to be done with like tying them all together. But I do think by the end of 2025, we will be at a point where a majority of on-chain interactions look equivalent to Web 2 UX patterns today, where users just like are signed into an account, just going to look like single sign-on with Google or something, and then they just like click button to like do whatever they want to do. It's not going to be like approve this transaction and like spend this much gas and stuff. Like all of the primitives are there, and so that is something that is going to be, in my opinion, one of the highest leverage domains to focus on in 2025, because it's actually what will like enable a new type of user to be onboarded into the industry.
Yep. Totally agree. Yeah, and it's just the natural way of life. You have to make something look like what people are comfortable with if you want them to use it. So yeah. And what about for Omni specifically? What are I had the question as year-end goals, but it's kind of year-end, so I'm going to push it to 2025. What are next year's goals?
Yeah, I think to me, it is the biggest problem facing the Ethereum ecosystem is this fragmentation problem. It's like, okay, we need to do scale Ethereum, and we kind of push all this activity to third parties like Optimism, Arbitrum, Base. And this has made it somehow even harder to use crypto systems. And this is the biggest problem facing the Ethereum ecosystem. Guys, like it's all over the timeline. Like people like ETH price is down, like, and it's because it's kind of a mess right now. But to me, I see a very clear path to Ethereum feeling like one chain again. And it all comes from this like chain abstraction design, where users don't have to think about the roll-up set they're on. Right now, we're like the first person or the first team that we're releasing this with is Symbiotic, but it's kind of the like what the future of Ethereum will look like, in the sense that Symbiotic only exists on Ethereum L1, but users will be able to deposit tokens from Arbitrum, Optimism, Base, without Symbiotic needing to worry about deploying across all those rollups, or users needing to think about the fact that Symbiotic is not like technically on the smart contract platform that their funds are on. So this whole like ETH fragmentation, chaotic ETH ecosystem, ETH falling apart, that is what I am most excited about, and what I can see that we will like directly have the most high leverage impact on in the first half of 2025.
Love it. Love that, because I think everybody has just been seeing is like doom and gloom about ETH. I listened to a Empire podcast from Blockworks about It was like the Coinbase head of institutional. Oh, I should have known who it was. But he had a great comment about ETH. I'll send it to you. But he was very optimistic, like over the years as time went on, that it would find itself again. Okay, awesome. I've got my last two questions that are things I ask all of my guests. First one being, what is your favorite book? And maybe what are you reading right now too?
I tend to read multiple books in parallel because, okay, right now I'm reading The Mystery of Capital, a textbook on material sciences, and
Really?
yeah, and
That's awesome.
some fiction book called like the Stormlight Archive. And this is
Cool.
just because it's like cool. My finance, like my economic brain, my personal curiosity, like personal science curiosities, and then like a fiction book to just like help my brain deactivate. Um, that's what I'm reading right now. My favorite book, good question. Okay, can I split this fiction and
Totally.
then nonfiction? Okay, fiction. Red Rising was a series that I read recently, and it's kind of like, I don't know, it's fiction. It's kind of silly, but like it's a vibe. It's a good book, or a good series. And then on the nonfiction front, The Ascent of Money, by I think it's Neil Ferguson. Fascinating book. It kind of just like helps tell the story of like money as a tool and as an idea has played a very fundamental role in shaping the evolution of human society. And before I read this, I read it back in university, but it really helped me understand like, oh, money is important, like far more than like just having money, but like as a tool for coordinating people. That is one thing that, especially anybody in the crypto space, I think really will help them zoom out and understand the scale of like the opportunity with these technologies.
I don't know it. I'm gonna look it up. That's cool.
It's dense, but it's good.
It's probably is dense, but I feel like I read recently. I don't know. I read the Bitcoin Standard like a year and a half ago, and it opened up a lot about money to me that I didn't really realize. And I've kind of been on a little money history journey,
Yeah.
but it's all really
Yeah.
relevant. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
And last question. As a leader, CEO, founder, how do you become a good decision maker? A lot of decisions going on there.
Ooh, that's a good question. Ironically, I feel like the best way to make good decisions is to frame questions in the best way and have precision around the questions that are being asked. Downstream of that, it's kind of easy, I feel. It's like you can just understand, like, hey, will this have impacts on the team? Where will this position our product? Like, is this going to push this metric? Like, it's kind of rudimentary at that point. But
Yeah.
really, it's about making sure that you are spending your time answering the right questions and formulating them in a way that is like precise and clear. So sorry if that's a non-answer, but
No, I
that's
like that.
yeah.
I think that's a great answer. And I often try and like, um, I think questions are a good response to anything confusing or you don't know, especially with like human confusion. Like my little sister called me and was like, "What do I do about this disagreement I'm having with my roommate?" And I was like, "Ask questions. Just be curious. Ask questions,
Mhm.
and it will help you guys come to some conclusion." So
Yeah.
I think that's a great answer. I like that, and I have
Cool.
not heard that out of all the people I've asked. Um, Thanks, Austin. That's
Mhm.
all the questions I've got for you. I appreciate your time so much. It's been really, really awesome hearing about your life and your world and how you operate as a founder.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks everybody for listening. Have a great rest of your day, and Austin and I will talk to you soon.
All right. See ya.
Bye.